with me today for another Wise, Witty and Weird. Now, yesterday I put out a feed in relation to Sky News being banned by YouTube, something which I kind of celebrated because of the way they generally behave, which has been relatively unhelpful and which on many occasions produces a sense of fear in our community. And some of the things that obviously YouTube were concerned about were the spread of untruths about the coronavirus, and particularly how those news items or opinion pieces may have caused others to feel. So they came out, that is, Sky came out with a response to that. I just wanted to read to you some of their response, because it was quite interesting that they then decided to put up a case saying, what you're doing is curtailing our free speech. So on their website, they came up with this response. And here we see YouTube Sky News Australia suspended disturbing assault on freedom, suspension disturbing assault on freedom of thought. This is their argument now, that this is some sort of contravention on human rights. So we'll just have a look at some of the things they say. The freedom to engage in debate and challenge conversation, thinking and wisdoms were not always accepted as human rights. Philosophically, the notion has existed for millennia, with the most modern interpretations gaining their foothold in Greek debating chambers. Well, it's good to go back a few thousand years, isn't it, just to put sort of a handle on when all this sort of stuff came from. It has changed shape frequently and even been snuffed out by leaders of more totalitarian persuasions. If a society was lucky, it returned. If not, poverty and starvation. I don't know what in the hell they're talking about here. But the thing that interests me is that so important is your rights to communicate freely without interference, that it was declared a human right in 1948. Well, they're wrong, because the Universal Declaration on Human Rights says, this is the part that, so most of the Declaration on Human Rights says that whatever these rights are subject to the laws of the country. Now, I know that YouTube is not necessarily abiding by the law of the country. They're simply abiding by what they consider to be their ethical responsibility around dealing with misinformation, which is a big thing at the moment, and there's lots of debates going on everywhere about how we use how information is dispensed, who's it dispensed to, and whether or not that's helpful. So it's an interesting debate in itself. But the point here is that it says no one shall be subject to arbitrary interference with his privacy. I still wish they'd use more gender inclusive terms rather than his. Family, home or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honour and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. So the idea of the Declaration of Human Rights was to inform how legislation would be manifestly presented. So no one shall be subject to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honour and reputation. And that's the issue for me. And if you're going to quote the Declaration of Human Rights, I suggest that you have a better understanding as to actually what that means. Now, it was interesting within this particular news feed from Sky, that they were endeavouring to put a spin on it that they themselves have not done what YouTube are suggesting they may have done. So they refer to, so they did refer to Article 19. I just wonder whether I can find it. Article 12 was the one I quoted, and Article 19 is this one here. everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. No, you don't. If you're going to give, if there are laws that prohibit general slander, making statements about people that are untrue, about making statements that are putting someone down, that are denigrating them. So you can't make statements about someone's race, colour of their skin, their intellectual capacity or whatever, because those statements are discriminatory and are against the law. The rights include freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. This is the thing that they're particularly concerned about. And the reality, I think, is that what's the definition of an opinion? You know, I can have an opinion about somebody or something that could be totally erroneous. And because I have a megaphone, I don't, but if I did, that megaphone would be enough to influence other people and cause them to think the same that I do. And that thinking may be harmful to the community. So, in other words, if I'm saying that you should not go and get vaccinated, and the evidence says that you should, and it's protecting the community, and someone may die because they've heard what you say and they're not vaccinated, then, you know, the point is, are you responsible as an individual? Well, I believe that you probably are. Should you be held accountable for that? Yes, I think you should. Should you be prosecuted? Maybe. But certainly your views should be challenged. And where we've got an organisation like YouTube and Facebook, and they're making assumptions about who should be using their platforms and what people should or should not say on those platforms, I think it's quite reasonable at the end of the day to say, look, okay, you've kind of fucked up here, and that you should actually be removed from our platform until suddenly you've decided to change the way you're behaving. And I'm hoping that YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms will take responsibility. I don't think, so I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't think you could have a platform that says, okay, carte blanche. You can say whatever you like. Just imagine this. You can say whatever you like, you can do whatever you like, but you can't, and we don't care what you say. So you can swear, you can call people names, you can be racist, you can do all this other stuff about people. I have an issue with a particular bloke who has a go at me because I made a report about him and his behaviour, and the report was because I'd actually interviewed a couple of his kids who said some terrible things about the things that he'd done. And my assessment of him, though, was not about that. My assessment was because he'd called me and abused me because he knew I was about to interview his children, and he was fearful as to what his children would say. And the behaviour of this man is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. If people knew what he had done, they would not be associating with him at all, I can assure you. And so, but he keeps attacking me. I mean, now I sent my nastiest post I think I sent to him was, if there was a vaccine for stupid, you should be first on the line. That's the most aggressive I've been with. Most of the time I just ignore him. But it gets to a point whereby how long do I have to put up with someone attempting to abuse me and attack me professionally, and to at least push back to some extent against all of that. So, and you know, I have this YouTube channel and another one, and I have Facebook and Twitter, I guess. But you know, my voice isn't very loud, but I do have a voice, as does everybody. Anyone can use this platform, and there's certain degrees to which I cannot defend myself against this idiot. I can't, because I could start saying some things to him that could be seen as professionally inappropriate. I have a body that a peak body that oversees my profession, so I can't go out on a limb. There are restrictions for me, little old me, you know, and there should be restrictions for major organisations. You know, I can't come out and distinctly attack this man in ways which are offensive, because for me professionally it'd be the wrong thing to do. The worst I've done is told him that he's an idiot. So my issue, I guess, is to what extent should social media take control of some of these issues, and how should we, what I guess should that control look like? And I think that in my case, there's very little I can do, right? But would I expect like Facebook to take issues against this character who keeps having a go at me and asserting that I'm terrible at what I do and a whole host of other stuff? Should I expect Facebook to deal with that? I would like them to, and I know that some people who have seen some of his comments have attempted to, but Facebook haven't taken any action whatsoever. But when you have a larger stage and you're saying untruths that are going to influence hundreds of thousands of people, should you be held responsible? Yes, you should. And you should really think about the things that you're going to say and the influence it's going to have on others. It doesn't matter how much you believe that stuff. You know, if you believe the Holocaust did not happen, that's fine. Keep that belief to yourself. But when you make those beliefs public, not only do you get banned from certain sites, in this country you wouldn't even be able to come in. So when we're talking about freedom of speech, you know, how long is that piece of string? Because there are some things you just cannot say. You know, you cannot and should never use the N-word to describe African Americans or Aboriginal Australians. You know, there are things which sort of fit within the bounds of responsibility. You step over those bounds, then you should be punished. And in this case, Sky News have been punished, and rightfully so. It's a justifiable punishment. So if you've got any comments, and if you are on YouTube, could you please subscribe and ring the bell, and also if you're on Twitch, if you could follow us, that would be great. Okay, thanks very much for being with me. As I said yesterday, I'm planning to do one of these at least once a day. That's my goal. So stay tuned, and it'll be usually around a topic that is of interest to me and hopefully is of interest to you. So thanks very much for being with me. Take care, look after yourself, and more importantly, be safe.